obviously as you've grown, you've endeavored to try and release yourself of a little bit of the menial tasks, whether that through hiring different people at different stages. You are a team there. Obviously, you've got a number of people that work with you behind the scenes. I just wanted to go through those for those coaches that are probably at a stage in their career where they've maximised their one-to-one service. They've maximised that typical coaching side, and they're trying to grow and trying to find that extra time. Was there anything that was probably your big improver for you as you evolved that you went, God, I can't believe I didn't do that a year ago, or anything like that you can share with us to help some younger coaches out?
Yeah, the biggest thing I'd say is just setting firm boundaries and being all right with that, because there's no such thing as balance, right? We have an online course called Valued that's all about managing burnout, managing your career, because we realize that coaches don't get education around any of that. And it also goes into financial education as well, because my dad was a licensed financial advisor. And in that course, we talk about that, like quit the balance stuff. That doesn't exist. There's seasons. But the hard tactic, Lockie, to give them no app, no hack, no nothing, set boundaries and be willing to disappoint people. And I don't mean like you go out to irritate people. The mistake from this came from, because I got big timed a lot when I was coming up. I had this ideal that like, oh, when I have a platform, I'm going to get back to everybody. And so I tried that, every LinkedIn message, every tweet, every DM, every comment on IG, every email. And you know what it got me? I mean, you're sitting on your couch, not being present in the moment when your wife's right there before she even worked for us. And you just for a while, it's a high because you really think you're helping people. And then it just starts to, you burn out. It's not sustainable, and then you see how people behave sometimes, like even when you try to help them, there's a difference between being helped and being saved. So we have a reading list. If people go to artofcoaching.com/reading list, you can get a reading list because the questions we all get, right, are, hey, what book should I read? So I put this together a long time ago. Now it's not exhaustive, right? But there's 200 articles and books that somebody can read. And somebody reached out after downloading and goes, hey, thanks for the list. But to be honest, I think it's pretty arrogant of you and irresponsible, no joke, that you didn't tell me what order to read them in. And I remember hearing that and I'm just like, time out. I don't know this person. How arrogant and irresponsible would it be for me to tell him where to start? So what you realize is no matter how much you try to help people, there's certain people that they need to help themselves. So I got over this idea that I absolutely have this response. And then there's other people, Jordi, somebody the other day goes, hey, I think you have a responsibility to talk your opinion about Simone Biles and what she's doing at the Olympics. I go, I assure you, I have no responsibility whatsoever, nor does the world care to hear my thoughts on what somebody else does with their life, at all. But anyway, getting back on track, I started learning that I had to set boundaries. And the key quotable for this, guys, is givers have to set boundaries because takers never will. So the big awakening for me was you get taken advantage of. People take a nibble. They take a nibble. They want this for free. They want to pick your brain. And then they don't care. Hey, coach, you're in town. Can we meet for a cup of coffee? You do that a couple of times. You realize that these people, like half the time, like they're just not respectful of your time, and very few of them actually even reach back out to you. I got yelled at because I didn't go across town to meet some guy when I had just gotten back in town from an international flight. And he's like, well, I just think you could have done this. And so, even if you have the best interactions, why I'd tell people to set boundaries is otherwise you'll never do the work that is more focused, And so the big issue for me, Lockie, is email is a massive distraction for me because when somebody reaches out to me with a problem, I'm OCD. I got to try to solve that problem. It's not an awesome thing. It can be really good, right? It's what led to us being coaches, but I'll get obsessed with solving that problem. And then I'll get distracted and I'll forget to do I won't get my work done because that problem takes emotional energy, intellectual energy, what have you. So I started learning, hey, I'm going to only check email once a week. And so I hired an executive assistant and I said, hey, here's things that are high priority. Here's things that have to wait, what have you. I also started setting limits on how often I'm going to check DMs. And I'm just open with people. I say, hey, I got to be honest, email can be massively distracted for me. Just like some people don't like social media, I don't like email. It's also a very context poor medium. People would reach out with 6, 8, 12 paragraph questions. And I love them. I love their questions. I want to help. But man, that's why I created these online courses. That's why I created our podcast. That's why I created these things. And so then you'd find that you'd tell people, hey, I can give you a short answer here. but also here's this resource. And Jordi, they'd be like, well, you just want to make money. I'm like, yeah, man, I want to help people. And of course we want to make money. That restaurant down the street, when I'm hungry, I go in there and I want to eat food, but I also don't mind to pay those people because they're providing a service. So I just think setting boundaries, setting clear timelines, and some of this, it might make some of your listeners pissed off because they're going to say, it sounds like a guy that got a platform and got entitled. Step in my shoes a little bit. Step in Lachie and Jordi's shoes. Nobody can please everybody. Nobody. And that's why we create solutions that are online education. It's why they have this podcast, because you can help one person in one DM, or you can help 2 to 40,000 people in one podcast. And so I just think that, setting boundaries, being willing to say no, not the last thing I'd say is know what your time's worth. I know what it cost me from an economic standpoint, Jordi, to be gone from my business. I have salaries I have to pay. I know what it cost me to build the knowledge that I did. So I can do a certain amount of speaking events below my rate each year. And I'm also I sit on the board of a nonprofit that helps kids in underserved communities. But I am not going to feel bad when somebody asks for something and I quote them $5,000 as speaking engagement, because I can tell you that $5,000 doesn't even cover the payroll tax that I pay the government when I process that pay. Oh, $5,000, Mr. Big Time. I'm like, that doesn't even cover payroll tax. And then by the way, I spoke at one place where they said, hey, you're cheap. And I think it was like a $10,000 speaking engagement. I go, well, I'm glad we were able to meet you where they at. I go, compared to what? And they were like, well, David Goggins charged $85,000 and was here last week. So when you hear that the Duckworths and the Robert Sapolskys, and good for them, by the way, screw anybody that's mad at them. If somebody gets paid $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, you can sit there and be like, sell out. Or you can just say, I don't know, maybe you should. And our industry has a hard time with that. It's a race to the bottom, the struggling Olympics. So I'll do it for free because I'm in it for the right reasons. When the hell did it become you either accept money for what you do or you're not in it for the right reasons? You know what I mean? I'd love to go to the bank and be like, I can't pay my bills this month, but guess what? I do what I do for the right reasons. They're going to be like, yeah, we don't deal in hope, buddy. You need to pay us. It's a tremendously unprofessional attitude.